I walked into that boardroom still half in a daze from my dad's funeral the week before. Thought it was just the standard quarterly meeting. Some updates, budgets, maybe Carl rambling about compliance like always. I wasn't even wearing a tie, just his cufflinks, silver with the company's first logo engraved. He gave them to me when I became COO. Didn't even make it to my chair. Nate, my stepbrother-in-law, recently appointed board chairman, cleared his throat like he was about to give a speech. I didn't even sit down. I looked around and noticed Carl wouldn't meet my eyes. Neither would Joyce or Melvin, two of the board members who'd been around since the beginning. That's when my gut twisted. "Before we get started," Nate said, flipping through a folder like he was reading off a lunch order, "the board has convened a closed vote regarding executive leadership." I frowned. "What the hell are you talking about?" Carl finally looked up, face tight. "We appreciate your years of service, but the board has decided to transition leadership." "Transition?" I said, louder now. "I've been here 15 years. I ran ops, sales, R&D. I held this place together while my dad was in chemo." Nate didn't flinch. "We feel your performance in the CEO role lacks the maturity and public presence expected at the C-suite level." Bullshit. Before we go further, quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. They'd rehearsed it, every word. Joyce nodded like a puppet. Melvin mumbled something about fiduciary duty. My hands were shaking, but I kept them at my sides. Then Nate hit the button, actual button, called security. Two guys came in wearing plain polos, standing just behind me like I was some disgruntled warehouse temp, and not the CEO of the company my dad built from scratch. I didn't say a word, not one. I looked around the room one last time. Nobody met my eyes, not even Susan from HR, who I'd promoted last quarter. I nodded once, slow, and turned around. The walkout felt like a mile. I passed the open floor where engineers and admins froze mid-keystroke. People I hired. People I trained, not one of them moved, not one spoke. I reached the front door, stepped outside into the fall air, and dug my hand into my pocket. The cufflinks were still there. I stood outside that building for maybe 5 minutes before walking off. Didn't know where I was going, just knew I wasn't going home yet. When I finally got there, I poured 3 fingers of scotch, didn't even sit down. Just stood in the kitchen like a statue and drank. For a week straight, I did the same thing. Wake up pissed, go to bed pissed. Every time I thought about how Nate pulled that off, I felt like a fool. Like I'd walk straight into a trap, wearing my dad's damn cufflinks like some naive heir. Then I called Jay. Jay's a buddy of mine from college. Went through a nasty divorce 2 years ago. His ex tried to bury their joint assets across 5 accounts in 3 states. Jay hired this guy, Doug Elman. Ex-cop, knows how to find shit people don't want found. I got Doug on the phone, told him what happened. He was blunt. "Corporate coups get messy. You want me to go fishing? I need bait." I gave him names. Nate, Carl, Joyce, Melvin. I even gave him access to my old company email. 3 days later, he called me back. "I've got something." We met at a diner off I-10. Doug slid me a flash drive and a printed folder. Old school. Emails are encrypted, but I had a guy work on them. They were sloppy. Used the same passphrase across chains. "You're not gonna like what's in there." He wasn't kidding. The emails started almost 7 months back. Subject lines like leadership transition, future proofing, and post-Richard contingency. My father was still alive when they were plotting this. Carl was in deep, coaching Nate, coordinating votes, even mocking me in one chain. Called me the prince with no crown. That stung worse than the boardroom. But that wasn't the worst part. Doug tapped the folder. "The real issue's this. Offshore accounts, foreign stock dumps, wire transfers. They're selling your company's core IP to a biotech firm called Medix Core. Deal's already greased, just waiting for SEC timing to cool off." "Golden parachutes?" I asked. He nodded. "Big ones. Carl's cut alone is 8 figures. I flipped the pages. Wire records, Cayman transfers. They were gutting the company and dressing it up like a strategy. Killing the soul of everything we built for shareholder value. It felt like getting kicked twice, once in the boardroom, once in the memory of my dad. Back home, I dug into the corporate bylaws. I needed to know if there was any way back. That's when I found it, buried deep in section 11.3.4. A shareholder or block holding at least 75% voting control could reverse any board action without the board's consent. No veto, no appeal, just numbers. I read that clause 3 times, then grabbed my dad's estate packet. He left me 21.5%. I sat there staring at that number. It wasn't a majority, but it was a weapon if I knew how to use it. Doug texted me while I was still digging through papers. Want me to keep looking? I replied, no, I've seen enough. I wasn't going to cry or scream. That's what they'd expect. That's what a kid with no maturity would do. Instead, I opened a blank legal pad and wrote one word at the top. Coalition. Game's not over. Not even close. I didn't sleep that night. Just kept scribbling names on the yellow legal pad. Employees, former execs, early investors, lab heads. People who didn't just collect a paycheck, they gave a damn. If I had any shot at hitting 75%, it wouldn't come from hedge funds or passive stakeholders. It had to come from people like my dad. First name I circled was Dr. Patel. He ran diagnostics, had for over a decade. Brilliant, focused, never played office politics. My dad trusted him with everything from budget approvals to patient testing protocols. I texted him that morning, just one line. Need to talk, not by phone. We met in his office after hours. Blinds drawn, door locked. He stood when I walked in. I heard what they did to you, he said, voice low. Your father would have burned this place down. I'm working on it, I told him. Then I laid it all out. Emails, fake deals, the Medics Corps backdoor play. I watched his face tighten as he read through the folder. No questions, no disbelief, just quiet anger. When he finished, he looked up. How much do you need? Every piece I can get. You still hold your shares? 2.1%, he said. They vested after year 10. Can I count on you? He nodded without hesitation. Your father gave me this life, this lab, my family's house. Whatever I have, it's yours. That was the first one. A quiet handoff. No contracts, just trust. He became my silent partner from the day forward. Then came the hard part, digging through 15 years of shareholder records to figure out who still had skin in the game. I spent hours cross-referencing old performance bonuses, option grants, and early round investor statements. Most of it was digital, buried in archived HR folders I still had access to. I started making calls, setting up coffees, driving 2 hours just to meet a retired lab tech in a diner who still held 0.5% in an IRA she forgot she even had. I didn't go in with speeches or big promises. I went in with proof. I showed them exactly what the board was doing, how they were cashing out and hollowing out the company in the process. Every meeting was quiet, confidential. I didn't want word getting out. I just wanted signatures. And slowly, they came. One tech from the Seattle office handed me his paperwork across a Formica table, hands shaking. Your dad gave me a second chance after I messed up a trial run. If he trusted you, so do I. Another guy, Carlos, an old maintenance lead who now works security at a mall, took 10 minutes to remember who I was. Then he read one line of Carl's email and said, "Where do I sign?" My lawyer, Denise Traeger, helped me set up a series of shell LLCs, clean, anonymous entities. Nothing flashy. Each one started buying available shares on the open market, quietly, strategically, never more than 0.5% at a time, just enough to stay below radar. It was slow, brutal. I got shut down a lot. Some shareholders had already sold off, others didn't want to get involved, and a few just didn't care. They'd moved on. Every single percent was a knife fight. I kept a running total on a whiteboard in my guest room, Patel's 2.1, 0.25% from a retired chemist in Florida, 0.5% from a former executive assistant I tracked down in Arizona, another 1.8 from a small retirement fund that still had old employee shares. It started looking less like a lost cause and more like a war chest. 62 signatures in, I sat back, cracked a beer, and stared at the math. I was past 48% and still climbing. Patel came by that night. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You look like hell. Feel worse," I told him. He stepped inside, looked at the board. "How much more?" 26.5. He whistled. "You think it's possible?" "I don't care if it's possible," I said. "It's happening." We worked through the night, me, Dr. Patel, and Denise. By morning, we had it set up. A brand new LLC under a fake holding firm registered out of Delaware. Name on the paperwork, PathGen Health, logo, website, EIN, phone number, routed through a third-party receptionist line. Looked clean, sounded real. It wasn't. That week, I showed up at a biotech summit in San Diego, unannounced, wore a sharp suit, stuck close to the open bar, dropped one line here, one there. Working on something new, I told a guy from Genaxia. Diagnostics? Therapeutics? Both. Skunkworks project, early days. I let it hang just long enough. 2 days later, I heard from a recruiter I knew inside my old company. Word is, you're building a new lab? Depends who's asking, I said, and hung up. I let it spread, dropped rumors on LinkedIn, had Denise post fake job offers on 2 biotech forums. Senior research lead, director of clinical ops, compensation TBD, even rented a small office space 4 blocks from HQ with a new nameplate. Then I waited. Didn't take long for the panic to hit. One of my old engineers forwarded me an internal memo. Legal had fired it off company-wide. Reminder, NDAs are enforceable. Breaches will be prosecuted. Another email went out from Carl to the board. They were tracking ex-employees for competitive threat assessment. Perfect. Because while they were trying to hunt down a fake company, I was still buying real shares. By the end of the month, I was sitting at 68%. Nobody noticed. Nobody looked inside. They were too busy looking over their shoulder. Then I leaked the big one. Had Patel tell a mutual connection at a conference that I'd made an offer to Dr. Kim, our star researcher. Everyone knew if Kim left, our entire immunology pipeline would collapse. I didn't even have to speak to her, just hinted that we'd met. 2 days later, they called an emergency board session. Legal scrambled. HR sent out loyalty surveys. They even asked Kim straight up if she was leaving. She denied it, obviously, because she had no idea what was happening, but the damage was done. They were chasing shadows now, drawing up lawsuits against a company that didn't even exist, holding strategy meetings about preventing a talent drain while I was flipping retired stock and collecting employee buy-ins behind the scenes. Patel and I kept everything low. No flashy moves, no big purchases, just steady pressure. Denise called it death by 1,000 cuts. I called it patience. Every time they blinked, I moved one step closer. They still thought they kicked me out of the building. They had no clue I was halfway back in through the basement. I was in my car outside Patel's lab, reviewing share ledgers, when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. Yeah, I answered. Still fighting the bastards, huh? The voice was gravelly, familiar in a way that pulled me straight back to my 20s. Who's this? Frank Delaney, he said. Used to be your dad's CFO. We met once at the old Christmas party. You spilled bourbon on my shoes. I sat up. Frank, thought you retired. I did, but I've been watching. Board filings, insider trades, all that noise. Looks like your old man's company turned into a damn circus. Yeah, I said quietly, and I'm about done letting them run the show. He paused. You got time to meet? I've got something your father left behind. We met the next morning at a park in Santa Monica. He looked older, thin hair, tan face, still sharp behind the glasses. He set a cardboard box on the bench between us. Your dad gave me this the year before he died, he said. Told me to keep it safe in case things ever went sideways. His words, not mine. I opened the box, stacks of files, old contracts, flash drives, a black cassette tape with a yellow post-it, board meeting, private audio. What's on this? I asked. Play it, Frank said. I used my phone's adapter and hit record. The sound came through rough but clear. My father's voice first, tired but firm. Then Nate's, arrogant, laughing. We can't keep pretending the old man's running the show, Nate said. Once he's out, we can move fast. I'll push the kid out next. I froze. The air felt heavier. Frank didn't speak. Just watch me listen to the rest, talk of kickbacks, shell accounts, board favors. They weren't just planning a takeover, they were stealing. When it ended, I sat back, jaw tight. He knew, I said. Dad knew it was coming. Frank nodded. He suspected, but he trusted the wrong people. I flipped through the files. Paper trails of contract fraud, stock transfers, offshore payments. It wasn't business strategy. It was felony-level rot. I looked at him. You sure you want me to have all this? He smirked. Kid, I've been waiting for someone to use it. Just make it clean. I closed the box and shook his hand. You have my word. That night, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by files, calculators, and half-drunk coffee. Patel called, asked how close we were. Close enough, I said. I logged into Denise's secured network, executed the last 3 acquisitions through our shell companies. It took 12 minutes total. When the final confirmation came through, the number glowed on my screen. 75.08%. I exhaled once. Not relief, something sharper. Cold satisfaction. For the first time since the boardroom ambush, I wasn't reacting. I was leading. The second that ownership figure hits 75.08%, I sent the letter straight to the board. Certified mail, return receipt, and a digital copy to their inboxes. No way they could claim they didn't see it. Subject line was simple. Notice of special shareholder meeting. Immediate. Inside, I laid it out plain. I was exercising my voting rights to reverse my removal as CEO and block the Medic's core asset transfer. I cited the bylaws, quoted the exact clause, bolded. It was airtight, and they knew it. Denise filed the SEC 13D form within the hour. Public disclosure of my ownership stake. Took less than 30 minutes for it to hit the wires. By noon, the financial blogs were already picking it up. By 2 p.m., Bloomberg ran it as a headline. CEO ousted by board. Quietly amasses controlling stake. Revenge or revival. The stock dipped 9 points overnight. The vultures came quick. Journalists started sniffing around former employees, old suppliers, even my college roommate. 2 podcasters called Patel pretending to be research students. One outlet ran a speculative piece on internal sabotage. I didn't say a word. Let them guess. The next morning, my mom called. "He's trying to use me now," she said. "Nate just called here, crying." "Crying?" I almost laughed. "Says you're destroying everything? Says your father wouldn't want this." She paused. "You want to talk to him?" I heard shuffling, then her voice firm. "Tell him yourself." Nate came on. "This isn't the way, man. You're hurting the company, hurting Mom." I kept my voice flat. "You tried to sell off Dad's life's work for a payday. I'm not stopping." "You think you've won?" he snapped. "It's over," I said, calm as ever. "You just don't know it yet." He hung up. That night, I drove past the company's main campus. Late, close to midnight. Thought the place would be dark. But the security lights lit up the courtyard, and something caught my eye in the lobby. A janitor was vacuuming near the front desk. On his jacket was a little silver pin, the original company logo, the one my dad designed back in his garage. I pulled over, sat there for 5 full minutes. Next morning, Patel texted me a photo. His lab team, all wearing the same logo pin. He didn't add a caption. He didn't have to. By lunch, I got a message from an old project manager I hadn't talked to in over a year. "We're with you. Let us know what to do." The tide wasn't just turning, it was breaking, and I wasn't finished. The boardroom looked exactly the same. Same brushed steel table, same black leather chairs, same stupid wall art Nate had put up after Dad died. Some abstract painting nobody liked. But this time, I walked in wearing my father's tie. Burgundy, worn around the edges, knotted tight. Every head turned. Nobody said a word. I walked straight to the center of the room and stopped behind the chair they had thrown me out of 3 months ago. Joyce looked down at her hands. Carl stared at the glass of water in front of him, like it held the answer to everything. Nate stood. "This is a closed board meeting," he said. "You're not a member of this board anymore. Security, sit down," I said. He blinked. "Excuse me?" I reached into my case and pulled out 2 sealed packets, dropped them on the table like bricks. "That's the updated shareholder registry, certified. That," I pointed to the second folder, "is the legal opinion from outside counsel confirming voting control. I now hold 80.3% of the company, legally, transparently, fully disclosed." Nate didn't move. "You've got nothing," he said, but his voice cracked. I looked at the door. Right on cue, Denise wheeled in 2 dolly carts, 6 file boxes stacked high, all labeled, color-coded, and cross-referenced. "Evidence," I said. "Wire transfers, insider trading logs, backdated contracts, fake expense reports, and your little private deal memo with Medic's Core. Signed by you, Carl, and Joyce." Carl went pale. Joyce whispered, "Oh my God," and backed her chair away from the table. I didn't yell. I didn't raise a hand. I just leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. Right now, every one of you is going to submit your resignation. Effective immediately. Walk out clean, and I won't file civil charges." Carl cleared his throat. "What about criminal?" "Not my department," I said. "I've already handed everything over to the SEC and the DOJ. They'll do what they do." Joyce stood up first. "I want a lawyer." "You'll need one," Denise said, cool as ice. Joyce left without another word. Carl followed, mumbling something about loyalty and being misled. I didn't even look at him. 2 other board members slipped out after them, quiet, heads low, not even trying to fight. That left Nate. He stayed seated, jaw tight, eyes locked on mine. The only sound was the ticking of the conference room clock and the hum of the AC. "You think this fixes anything?" he said. "You're not your father. You think a win like this makes you him?" "No," I said. "I don't. But I know exactly what he'd do if someone tried to steal what he built." Nate pushed back from the table and stood. "I'm not resigning. You can't fire me. My employment contract—" "You don't have one anymore," Denise cut in. "It was invalidated when your position was created through board manipulation. Your entire appointment was based on fraud. You can't prove that." I nodded at Patel, who stepped forward and placed the cassette tape on the table. "You're on record, Nate." You talked about pushing out the old man, about selling the company before the cancer took him. My father trusted you like family. You spit on that. He stared at the tape for a full 10 seconds. Then he laughed, short, bitter. Security, I said. The door opened. 2 guards stepped in. Same uniforms, same walk, different direction. Don't touch me, Nate barked. Then walk, I said. He stormed toward the door, turned, and threw one last glare over his shoulder. You won't survive this. I smiled. I already did. They walked him out. The second the door clicked shut behind him, I pulled out the chair at the head of the table and sat down. My chair, my table. I looked at the rest of the room, half empty, half stunned. Patel stood across from me, arms folded. Denise checked her watch. No one spoke. Let's get to work, I said. We didn't waste a minute. The day after the board was gutted, I called an emergency session with my new appointees. Frank took his old seat at the head of finance. Patel slid into R&D oversight without blinking. Denise stepped in temporarily as legal counsel, while we sourced replacements for the corporate governance committee. No more yes men. No more corporate snakes. Everyone in that room had bled for this company, or at least respected what it stood for. First order of business, kill the Medics Corps deal. I pulled up the contracts on the conference screen. Anyone see a reason to keep this alive? Frank scanned the terms, snorted. This isn't a partnership. It's a heist. We voted. Unanimous rejection. Dead in the water. Second move, reallocate funds back into research. I gave Patel full control of the lab budget with no board interference. His face lit up like he'd just been handed oxygen. You sure about this? He asked. Don't make me regret it, I said. He didn't. We brought back 4 senior scientists who'd quietly left under Nate's reign. 2 others we caught just in time. Offers were already out from competitors. We beat them by hours. Next, I wrote a company-wide letter, hand-signed. Printed copies sent to every desk, email version blasted through internal comms. Title line, back to what matters. I laid it out simply. The takeover was over. The Medics Corps deal was off. The culture was coming back, and no one was losing their job for speaking the truth again. The response was instant. People wore their old logo pins again. Some pulled out dusty mugs and notebooks from 5-10 years ago. There was this quiet, growing energy in the halls, something I hadn't seen since before my dad got sick. 2 days later, the SEC dropped their first notice. Investigation opened into former executives at ClearPath Biotech. The next day, DOJ followed. Fraud, insider trading, FCPA violations, and obstruction. Joyce's name was front and center, Carl's too. Even Nate's full name, Nathaniel James Whitlow, was splashed across every major financial headline. I didn't smile, not publicly, but late that night, I poured a glass of scotch, pulled up the article, and read it 3 times. Then, my phone buzzed. Mom, she texted one line, divorce papers filed, better late than never. She meant my stepfather, Nate's father. I didn't know what to say, so I just typed, proud of you. She replied with a heart, then nothing else. The next morning, I called a meeting with all department heads, every division all at once. Filled the main conference hall. Standing room only. I didn't speak from a podium. I didn't hand out some glossy deck of KPIs. I just stood at the front and said, we forgot what made this place work. We lost it chasing the wrong things. But we've got a second shot. So here's the deal. No more silence. No more fear. And no more pretending a spreadsheet knows better than the people who built this. Applause hit like thunder. I looked out and saw the old fire in people's faces. Heads nodding, shoulders back. Like someone had cracked open a window after months of stale air. The building was quiet, no voices in the halls, no ringing phones, just the low hum of HVAC and the occasional creak in the vents. I sat in my dad's old chair, my chair now, with a glass of scotch in one hand and his fountain pen in the other. The desk light cast a soft circle across the pages in front of me. Paper, not email, not Slack, just ink and conviction. The memo was short, a promise really. We don't forget who we are. We don't sell out what matters. ClearPath lives by the work, not the numbers. I signed it at the bottom. My name, no title, just the person who gave a damn. Across the shelves were the pieces of him, patent plaques, photos in hospital labs. One shot from our first international trial. He's got his arm around me, grinning like a kid. I cleared a spot, reached into my bag and pulled out a framed photo. The one Patel snapped the day I walked back into that boardroom. Dropped it between the awards like it belonged there, because it did. A knock hit the door. Frank stepped in without waiting for a response. holding 2 cups of gas station coffee like we were back in the trenches. He didn't sit, just leaned on the doorframe, eyeing the room. "Tidy," he said. I smirked. "Give it a week." He handed me one of the coffees and nodded toward the memo. "You always this dramatic? Only when it counts." He pointed at the glass of scotch. "Celebrating or reflecting?" "Both." Frank stepped closer, looked at the photo. "You did good, kid. Old school, ruthless." "That's the only way," I said. He didn't argue. He left after that. No speeches, no backpats. Just a nod, and the door clicking shut behind him. I stood, walked over to the window, and looked out at the city. Buildings stretching past the hills. Cars still crawling through intersections. Somewhere down there, the first wave of morning shifts were starting. People clocking in, not knowing what we just clawed back from the edge. I raised the glass, pressed my fingers into the old logo on the cufflink. The lights of the city reflected back in the glass. "We got it back, Dad. The office was mine. The company was whole. The enemies were gone. The future, ours to shape."